Hello and welcome back to another video. My name is Brandon Watts. Today we're going to be going over a bit of an advanced workflow process on how to merge multiple exposures from light to dark. It's a complex scene in which we're going to be doing some window pulls. We'll have to bring back some highlights to match those window pulls, and we'll also be doing some color corrections so that way we can balance everything out. So before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe. There is quite a bit we're going to be going over, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. Okay, so now that we got all the images stacked into Lightroom, first thing we're going to want to do is go ahead and align these images. So we're going to do edit, auto align layers, and we're just going to hit OK. No need to worry about the other additional settings. We'll just stick to the default settings on this one. Now that those are aligned, we can go ahead and hit C to crop that in. Hold down Shift so that way we can keep the original aspect ratio of the image as we drag in this cropped region. Hit OK, hit enter, and now that is cropped. From here, what we can do is, while these are all selected, all these layers are selected, we can go to Layer, Arrange, Reverse, and now we can start adding black layer mask to each layer. Because what we're going to do is layer in the dark regions of the images above down to the layer at the very bottom. So this layer right here is going to be our base, and we'll be bringing in the exposure for this interior as we blend each layer into the last. So in order to do that, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and do a D1 selection inside Lumenzia. And don't worry, if you don't have Lumenzia, I'll show you how to do it without. But for this layer here, you can see anything white is revealed, anything black is concealed. So we're trying to conceal a little bit of that sky back there, parts of those highlights in the windows. That's fine. We'll hit select. Then we will go ahead and mask that selection and raise that feather by about 300 pixels. And now you can see this is the base image here. As I turn this layer back on, the interior starts to kind of get brought back slowly but surely. We'll do this one more time. D1 selection inside Lumenzia, hit select, then mask, and then feather that by about 300 pixels. And there we are there. Now you can definitely see the difference between those two exposures compared to the very last one there, how that gets a little bit brighter. Now if you don't have Lumenzia, go ahead and select your black layer mask, go to channels, control or command, left click your RGB thumbnail to create a selection around the brights of the image. We'll want to invert that selection by doing a control or command plus shift plus I to invert. Go back to your layers. While on that black layer mask, we'll do a control or command I to invert the selection and apply that selection to the mask. Though one thing we forgot, like the others, we have to feather that. And since we're not doing this inside Lumenzia, we'll do a control Z to undo that last action. Then we'll do a shift F6 to bring up our feather selection, and we'll feather that by 300 pixels. Then we can do a control or command I to invert that selection. And now that selection is now feathered onto the mask. We'll do this again, do a control or command D to deselect. Select the next black mask above. Go to channels, control or command, left click RGB. Do a control or command plus shift plus I to invert the selection. Shift F6 to bring up your feather selection and feather that by 300 pixels. Come back to your mask, control or command I to invert, and then just deselect that selection. We'll do this one more time, super quick, within Lumenzia. All right, and now the interior is brought back compared to the windows before it, where everything was just so dark. Now everything is kind of brought back, but this brightest exposure is too bright. So let's go and just bring that opacity down. Let's bring it down to about 24%. I like that number. Now the shadows are brought back ever so slightly without being too dark or too bright. From here, we can start to work on the windows. So this bottom layer here is going to be one of my window layers. We'll do a control or command J to duplicate, bring it up to the top of the stack. We'll drop the opacity to about 50%, just so we can see what we're doing. Go ahead and zoom in, hit P for pen, and we're going to have to select out these windows with the pen tool just by hitting those mullions. If you have a straight edge like this bar right here, I just like to do M for marquee, hold down Alt or Option to make sure that I am on a subtraction. I'll just take that out with one click like that. Then for these additional areas, I'll do L for lasso. Make sure I'm on a subtraction again for the lasso tool, and I'll just take out the parts that I don't need. Okay, let's just go ahead and grab in this little inside area right here. And we'll grab the last of these windows right here. Okay, now that we have the window selected, let's go ahead and bring back up our opacity to 100%. While our windows are selected, let's go ahead and hit it with a layer mask. And you can see that parts of these windows are nicely exposed. The sky is nicely exposed. These buildings are nicely exposed, but these chairs down here are a little too dark. These windows are a little too dark. This top part is a little too dark. So since we can't bring it back with this layer mask, we'll go ahead and select the one right above it. We will duplicate that, delete this layer mask, and we'll go ahead and set this to a light and blend mode. From here, we can hold down Alt or Option, create a black layer mask on that layer, hit B for brush, and with a white foreground on a black mask, we can start to brush back the parts that are a little too dark. Okay, that looks nice. That looks nice. Let's go ahead and hit this top part right there. That looks good. These chairs are still a little too dark for my taste, so I'm gonna go one up, bring that layer up, set this to lighten, and then B for brush, black layer mask, then B for brush, and we'll start to just brush in those chairs and parts of this column here. There we are. Let's get those mullions intact. Let's go, boom. Just hold down Shift, then click, and then click again to draw a straight line down for that brush. Okay, now those windows are looking rather good. But what about this floor? Now this floor is too bright for how these windows are. Before, they kind of matched where these windows are blown out, that floor is kind of blown out. But now that we brought back the windows, how do we bring back that floor? Well, since we layered all of these together with a mask, all we have to do is just go back into one of those masks towards the top, B for brush, increase with the right bracket or decrease with the left bracket on your keyboard to increase or decrease your brush size. Make sure that you're on a black foreground color since we're painting on a white mask. And let's go and just brush back parts of those floor. There we are, there we are. Lower your opacity on your brush a little bit. I'm set to 24%, and we can select the next layer down and kind of start to brush that back. Even this chair is a little too bright, so let's go ahead and brush this back as well. Might be a little too dark, so let's undo. Drop the opacity on the brush to about 24%, and now we can bring it back lightly instead of so dramatically. All right, so yeah, these are looking good. All right. Now from here, what we can do is turn off the windows. Then we'll do a Control Command plus Alt or Option plus Shift plus E to merge all visible. We'll do a control command plus shift plus A to open up our camera raw. We'll make some quick adjustments to this image by hitting auto just to see what it gives us. Increase the contrast a little bit, bring back those shadows about right there. We'll reset the vibrance and saturation to 0. And I'd say that looks about good. It was a bright room. It was a bright room. Now we can re-add those windows. From here, we'll do a control command plus alt or option plus shift plus E again to merge all visible. Then we can do a control command plus J to duplicate. Go back into your camera raw. And now we can start to do a bit of color correction. We'll go into the color mixer tab. We'll drop our orange by -60. We'll drop the yellows by -40. Go ahead and hit OK or enter to apply those changes. Now we can add a black layer mask by holding down alt or option, hitting the layer mask button. And B for brush with a white foreground color on a black mask. Now we can make sure our opacity on the brush is set to 100%. And we can start to brush off that orange color cast that we don't want. Left or right on the keyboard to adjust your brush size. Now you can see before and after how that affects that orange color cast by not taking it out completely, but taking out the majority of it. Then we're going to hit X to go ahead and brush back in parts of the image that we do want to show through on that color, like these flowers were not white, they were kind of yellow-ish. That looks good, that looks good. But now what about these highlights and the lights and these pendants? They're a little too bright. Well, what we can do is go ahead and select, let's try this one. Do a control command J to duplicate, bring it up to the top, delete that layer mask, and then we'll set a black layer mask. B for brush, 24% opacity on the brush, and we can just brush in parts of those highlights that we want. Fairly easy. Okay, now we can brush back in some of these lights. Let's raise this to 50% opacity on the brush. And I'm going over the edges a little bit, but that's okay. Because I can hit X for X-ray on the keyboard to switch my colors from white to black and just wipe off some of those edges. All right, and we can bring back in some of these lights right here. Ever so slightly. And from our key, just to draw a box and create a straight edge on that wall, so that way I can just wipe off what I need inside of that box. Okay. All right. I'd say that looks fairly good. Fairly good. Do I need to bring back more orange? Yep. Looks like this got taken away. There we are. Add back some of that brown to that wood. We don't want it to be too gray. Okay. Now we can merge all visible. Do a control command plus shift plus A just to make sure everything looks good. Minor adjustments, minor adjustments. And then from here, one last thing. Let's go ahead and create a new layer. We'll do a P for pen, and we'll just go ahead and select the inside of this TV. I don't want to select the bezel of that TV. I just want to select the screen itself. We'll close out that selection. We'll hit G for gradient. Make sure that you are on a black to white foreground and not on a black to transparent foreground. We'll go ahead and just drag across. It's not too bad. Let's try a little bit further. There we are. There we are. I'd say that looks quite nice. Now if I merge those, I can do a sharpen no edge with Raya Pro. You can use a plugin of your choice to sharpen your images. Sometimes I use Lightroom, but Raya Pro is already here for me inside of Photoshop. And I'd say that that is a done image. A little bit of an advanced workflow. Took a little bit of time, but we were able to bring back parts of the image that normally you wouldn't be able to do inside of Lightroom when you let Lightroom do all the work for you. So let me know in the comments what you think. I appreciate everybody dropping by. You all take care and have a great day.